Hi Fronds! Check out my Philodendron Pink Princess. Welcome back to Botanical Woman. I'm Christine. And before we dive into my propagation story and all my care tips, I've been trying to get some input from you guys about what topics to go live about. If you've missed it, last weekend on Saturday, I went live and I talked about some of my Hoyas, and it was really fun. So I'm trying to do more of that since we are all kind of trapped inside right now. So if you didn't get a chance to see the poll or didn't get a chance to vote, you can actually find it on my channel page, and it is under the community tab. Otherwise, I think you will see it in your subscription feed or just your YouTube feed, but I think it comes and go pretty quickly. Yeah, so if you didn't get a chance to vote, or you have an idea that you want me to talk about and I can answer it, I would love to hear from you. So please go and check out this poll and give me your input. So let's get into this. So I got this plant 8 months ago as a 2-node cutting, and I was being super ambitious and decided that I was gonna cut it into 2. I was like, I have 2 nodes, so I could do that, right? Plus this was one of them, I don't know, maybe because, I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's one of the most expensive plants I have, and I'm like, I want more Pink Princess. So I was like, I'm gonna cut it in 2. So I did. And shortly, so I used rooting hormone, followed most directions except for one thing. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't sterilize my scissors. And what ended up happening was the cut that I made started to rot on both of my cuttings. I checked on it, I think, almost every other day, trying to see if the rooting hormone would stop the rot from continuing, but that never happened. So it was originally in sphagnum moss. That's how I got it. Then I decided to transfer it into perlite. I was hoping that the perlite will give it some moisture, but also some air to allow the part that's rotting to harden or dry out. And it eventually worked. I would say it took several months over the winter. 2 months ago, I transferred it into a bigger pot, still just using perlite, and I started giving it a little bit of fertilizer. And then has it been 2 weeks or 3 weeks? But I transferred it into the setup it's in now. It is currently in a medium called ponds, and it is in a self-watering pot. So I want to show you what that looks like. So it is, I would say, really happy in this medium. So one of the questions that I think a lot of people have is, what is the best medium for, your philodendrons, or more specifically your Pink Princess? And I think anything that is very well draining and that doesn't hold an awful lot of moisture will work. Ponds is actually like 3 types of rocks, and so it doesn't actually hold that much moisture. It holds just enough moisture, so that's why I felt that it was a good candidate for the Pink Princess. And I am using the wick, so there is constant moisture going to the plant, but it's not like super soggy. I got these self-watering pots off of Amazon. So if I touch the top right now, like, it's slightly moist, but because they're rocks, it's not holding that much moisture. So as far as potting medium, I think use something that's very well draining and holds some moisture. I feel like it doesn't need a lot of moisture, only because I had it in perlite. It was living in the humidity box, and it seemed pretty happy there. And it grew tons of roots while it was living in there, but it finally outgrew the box. It got too tall because I put it in the self-watering container, so now it lives outside. So this then leads to my second question, which is the humidity. I think when it was an infant, when it first started out, I think the humidity definitely helped. But now that I've taken it out, I haven't seen, like, it's not crying or anything, unlike like some calatheas that you might see. So I would say that my house humidity works for this plant, and it's probably somewhere around 50%. I don't have a hydrometer to measure it, but I have a lot of plants and they all seem to be doing all right. Do I miss this plant? I do not miss this plant or any of my plants. I don't necessarily find that missing the plants help. It does help raise the humidity for like, I don't know, 3 seconds, and then it evaporates. So I think you're better off using pebble trays if you're gonna worry about humidity. I used tap water to water this plant, and I actually used tap water to water most of my plants unless you are a carnivorous plant. And how often do I water this plant? So when it was in perlite, so when you're growing something in perlite, you can water it pretty frequently and it's not gonna hurt it because perlite actually holds not that much moisture. And now that it's in ponds and it's self-wicking, I haven't refilled this since I put it in. So it's been like I said, 2 or 3 weeks. And look at all the roots that are coming out. I cannot believe that. This is crazy. So this is a sign to me that it's really happy in this medium. And the reservoir is still quite full. So yeah, I probably won't have to refill it for another week at least. So we'll see how that goes. Overall, I would say this plant is actually really easy to take care of, and it's actually really hardy considering the fact that like I grew it from a cutting, and then I moved it into perlite, moved it out of the humidity box, then moved it into ponds, and it hasn't really complained. The biggest thing that I've noticed so far is when this lower leaf is dying, and it's probably due to the repotting, but otherwise looks pretty healthy. And it's been constantly putting out new growth for at least the past 2 months. So like this leaf just unfurled, and now you can already see another one coming out, and this one's the same. So it's coming, I don't know, I want to say every month there's a new leaf. Really rewarding plant to grow. So I highly recommend it, even though it's like really expensive. I got this cutting for $55, so probably on the low side. So if you can find one around that price, I would grab it. How much light do I give this plant? So I have this growing right underneath my LED light, and which is actually quite close to the canopy. It's getting to a point where I've noticed that like these half moon leaves, it's getting more pale, the pink. And I'm not necessarily sure if that happens due to age naturally, or is it because it's too close to the light? I have a feeling it's because it's a little bit too close to the light, but I have also noticed that because it's so close to the light, it's growing quite compactly. I would imagine if it was further away from the light source, it would just, be more leggy. I would put this in the brightest indirect spot you have and see how, it grows from there. About the variegation. So you've noticed here on the bottom leaves, most of these leaves on the kind of like minus this top part, all these leaves were grown inside the propagation box. And when they were in there, they were kind of living in the shadows of other plants because it was just so crowded. And so it wasn't getting as much light as it is now. And I'm not sure if it's a coincidence, but all of the more pink leaves are the more recent growth. So I cannot say that there is like a direct correlation that more light equals more pink variegation, but it seems like the case. But having said that, like this new leaf that's about to unfurl doesn't look that pink to me. I don't really know. But I would go with more light and then gradually, take it back if it's becoming too much for your plant. I have 2 questions for you guys. My first question is, so remember I started with a 2-node cutting, so I've been wondering if I didn't cut the node, like I didn't cut it in half, would the leaves have been bigger? Because the leaves right now are quite small. So I'm curious about that. I guess I'll never find out unless I get another pink princess. But I am going to say probably, I don't know. And then the other question that I have is, so you've noticed the leaves right now are quite long and narrow and skinny. When I originally got the plant, the mother plant, the leaves are more almond shaped, so they were fatter on the bottom. You probably can't really see this one, but this one is more like it. So it's kind of fatter on the bottom, and then so basically more almond shaped. So got a big booty, and then it gets pointy. So I'm not sure what causes the change of the leaf shape. If you have an idea, I would love to know. Could it be lighting, fertilizer? I don't know. If you have any questions about this plant, please leave them in the comments below. I always love hearing from you. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to grow along with us. Until next time, happy growing.